Welcome, Bronco Nation, to another exciting video and the final video in my Boise State 2025 preview series, at least as part of looking at the offensive, defensive, special teams. There will be one more where I actually preview the entire schedule, but as far as having former players come on and talk about the team, this is the last one. We've gone through the defense, Alexander Tubner. We've gone through the special teams, Jonah Dalmas, and today, probably the element that, to be honest, most fans are the most excited about, the offense. I have, again, a recent former player in Tyler Crowe, a former walk-on to Boise State who did incredible things in his 6-year career, 2019 to 2024. And we're going to talk about this Boise State offense. We'll talk a little bit about this last season for Tyler Crowe and the team, and then we'll look at the passing game, the running game, the wide receivers, offensive line. It's going to be an exciting conversation. We want all of you to be a part of it. So in the comments below right now, go in, put your predictions, your thoughts. How do you think this team is going to do this season? How are they going to move on from Ashton Jeanty? Who steps up in the running back room? Who steps up in the wide receiver room? And then as we're going throughout the conversation, add your thoughts below as well. I'll go back through and have a conversation with each and every one of you. But Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's going to be a great discussion.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back here. Like we were talking about earlier, lots of change since last time I came on the show. So hopefully we can keep this momentum rolling.
Well, so far, the last time you came on the show, Boise State went to a playoff game. So I think this is a good, this is good vibes right here. We'll keep it going 2 for 2. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting conversation. Obviously, Tyler Crowe, 2019 to 2024, he had 403 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, 5.1 yard average. And last season was his best season yet in the fullback role, 129 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, including Boise State's rushing touchdown versus Penn State to end the season in the CFP. So Tyler, coming on, last year we talked about how you came to Boise State and all of that leading up to 2024 season. And I really encourage anyone who has not watched that video, go back and watch. I'll put a link in the description. But we're going to kind of move on and talk about 2024 season now. And for you, we talked about it. We talked about the goal of the team was to make the playoffs, which for me was just so exciting to hear that the team was stating that as their goal. And obviously, you went out and you made your goal. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like, setting a goal at the beginning of the season that was so lofty and achieving it? Can you talk about that experience of making the playoffs last season?
Well, yeah, we can let's go back to like the first game and we didn't have it wasn't as much of a struggle, but it was a closer game than we would have liked it to be for sure. Gave up a lot of points in that game and we left that game with almost more questions, but we knew one thing that Ashton Jeanty was really good and the offense could put up a lot of points. And I think going into that second week, I remember I talked in a leadership meeting about this before the Penn State game. Going into that Oregon game, there was the guys who were like consistently on the field who like consistently play. I think there was a lot of like buy-in from them of like, yeah, we're gonna go beat Oregon at Oregon. But there was a lot of people too who were like, yeah, they're like the number one team in the country. I don't think we're gonna go win this game, 21-point underdogs or whatever. And I think the moment like that Sunday coming in after that Oregon game was like a really special moment where like there was like everyone in the room's like we should have won that game. Like we gave up 2 special teams touchdown and lost by a game-winning field goal. And you give up 1 special teams touchdown, your chances of going way down or go way down. You give up 2, it's got to be like in the 99 percentile that the other team wins. Now it'd be interesting to see the stats of like if you gave up two special teams touchdown, how close the games are because like most times those aren't close either. But yeah, after that, it was kind of it was a wild ride. After that Oregon game, it was almost like it's playoff football now. Like every single week we're coming to play, it's like we lose, we're probably not making the playoffs. So there wasn't added pressure or anything. A lot of people had asked that question going into that UNLV championship game, like, oh, this is a playoff game, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a playoff game for them, but we had been playing playoff football for 10 weeks at that point. So it was an awesome ride. There was a couple scares in there and whatnot. The San Jose State game, still can't believe they went for it instead of kicking the field goal when they were on like the 3 yard line, went for it, and that kind of switched things around and took that game. And then the Wyoming game was a scare. The Ashton Jeanty moment because he was hurting really bad in that game. Like his leg was pretty messed up and everything. He was like ruled out pretty much, and then he came in the fourth quarter and led that last touchdown drive. and that was a really special moment. But what a year last year was, I think it sucks too. The Penn State game is like we weren't outmatched physically or talent wise or whatnot, but we turned the ball over two or three times that game, missed a couple field goals. You're not going to beat a team of Penn State's caliber.
What was so special about last team was that it was a lot of the same guys that had been there in 2023 and even in 2022. And it wasn't like Boise State brought in a ton of huge name transfers that just revolutionized the offense and defense. It was pretty much the same team. Of course, there were some great transfers that came in, but overall, it's the same guys on defense, special teams, and offense. But the potential was fully realized last season. How did you all as a team unlock that full potential that maybe was there the whole time, but you realized it last season?
I think just the whole end of the run in 2023 and winning the championship and turning things around, just like the whole morale boost almost, like that whole off season and everything was really like free. Guys were having a bunch of fun, like they were wanting to be in the facility. They just saw like the light again in the program, and it was almost like it was like night and day, like from that moment, like once we won the championship, how much buy-in there was from everyone. And obviously the best player in the country comes back and says he's not going to a different school, because it was crazy. Like we're pretty close, and I'm pretty like he was on his way out almost if Coach D didn't get hired, and he gets hired and he stays, and then it's like everyone's looking at each other like, well, if Ashton Jeanty stays, I can stay too, like. So I mean that's pretty big time. I think a guy like that this year is like Cage Casey. Like he's getting offers just unreal, like left and right and up and down, and a guy like him stays. So it's like, who am I to leave if this guy's like better than me at football, and he's staying here at Boise State?
Well, how did obviously a big part of that was Spencer Danielson taking over as a head coach and moving that role from defensive coordinator to head coach and kind of change that culture in the locker room. Can you talk a little bit about him making that jump from a defensive coordinator to head coach and how he intentionally got the best out of everybody and did create a culture that people want to stay around in no matter what?
I think in college football world right now, it's hard to find coaches like, I mean, let's just go coaches first that really care about their players and care about like the program, and aren't just chasing the very the next thing. And same with like players. There's a lot of guys that transfer in. They're like, we weren't even like friends really with my teammates, and we didn't really hang out. And like it's all about. It's almost turned into like a pro thing. And I think him being like super authentic to himself and being the exact same person he was when he was the D coordinator, and really just sharing that love and that light to the players as well, like was a really eye-opening thing for everyone.
Let's talk about your role on the team. So Spencer Danielson had a new role this year, moving up to head coach, and you also had a new role. I mean, you'd obviously come in and blocked and that kind of thing, but this year you were the designated fullback. You were actually on the roster as a fullback, and a lot of teams in college football don't even have fullbacks named on the roster. I don't think Boise State right now on their actual roster, maybe out of fall camp they will, but right on their actual roster they don't have an actual designated fullback like you were last season. So can you talk a little bit about moving into that role and getting to run a traditional fullback role in a college football world that doesn't really use it anymore? What was that like for you moving to that role with any hurdles or challenges, and how did you embrace that new position?
It was so I had knee surgery right after the season in 2023, and I remember Potter had kind of sat me down and was like, "Hey, listen, like we have freaking Ashton Jeanty, like so the running back, you could sit there and play your little role in running back, or you could put on 20 pounds because I was like 215 at the time. He's like, you put on 20 pounds and you'll be able to like form yourself into a bigger role and better role than you're at right now." And I was like, perfect, like sign me up, like and me being around a guy like Ashton every day, it's like obvious that like he's gonna freaking take most of the carries at running back and whatnot. And so moving to that role, it was nice because I had surgery, so I was just working out and eating a lot of food at the time. Like the weight actually came on to me pretty fast, and then like getting back into shape in the summer and stuff was a little rough, but it was nice. And it kind of was ebbs and flows, like there'd be weeks where they'd be like, I mean, the Penn State game, we had like 20 fullback plays in, which was awesome. And it really just depended on the type of team we were playing. If they're a big like nickel personnel team or dime personnel team on defense, we're gonna line up and get in I formation and run the ball and lead blocking and have Ashton. So it was a really fun role too. It was a really I really felt a part of the offense last year, and like I had a big leadership role in that as well.
You've talked a couple times now, and I'll bring it up about Ashton Jeanty and your relationship. Can you talk a little bit more about that relationship? Obviously, you were the senior there, had been there since 2019, and Ashton came in a few years later. And so, can you talk a little bit about your relationship and what it was like to play with a player who's going to go down as the or one of the greatest players of all time in college football history?
I mean, it was awesome seeing him coming in as a freshman. That I was like kind of getting into my leadership role there, and him coming in. I remember the first spring ball. Funny story. So Tubes, first spring game is when he had all those long touchdown runs and whatnot. And I remember Tubes was one of my good friends too, and Tubes like was like really down on himself, like really like, am I good at football? Like like hindsight's 2020. He's the defense captain, Ashton's freaking best college running back last year. But I remember after that time, like Tubes was like, "Am I even good? Like this kid just showed up, and he's freaking running circles around me, making me miss like no other." So just seeing that, like from just kid who was just a freak athlete. I remember we played like pickup basketball his first winter here. And I was like, how is this kid freaking windmill dunking? He's like 5'7", and it's like in scrimmage. It's not like we're just sitting there trying to dunk. It's like in the middle of us, like all like playing pickup. Like he's just like dunking on people and everything. And it's like, geez, this kid's a freak. But just really growing that relationship over the years into like friends and seeing him be like the leader he was of the team and everything. Because it's crazy going into 2023, he still wasn't like the leader of the team or whatnot. Like it wasn't. It was more me and George at that point, and he was even like the backup running back, which was crazy because he ended up winning the Mount West Player of the Year that year as the I guess boy like true number two running back at Boise State. But really seeing him do all the things that we saw him do every single day, like it shocked a lot of people, and his life changed a lot. I mean, even the start of this year, like I mean, he was definitely the guy like the Boise State people knew, but and Mount West people knew, but you go from Georgia Southern, the kid had like 5,000 followers on Instagram to like 3 weeks later, he's got like 150K.
Yeah.
It was like sport. If you followed any sports page on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you saw Ashton Jeanty post at least once or twice a week because he's putting up all these insane numbers, having these crazy runs. I remember like the first time really this last year we're in Hawaii, and the running backs would always go to dinner on Thursday nights. Thursday night dinner is like the running backs thing. So we went early to Hawaii because it's farther. So we're like, Coach Jamont had us pick out a spot. We go, and it wasn't even Boise State fans are like following us into the restaurant. Like, hey, are you Ashton Jeanty? Like following us to the table. We're going to sit down. People, there's like a line of people, and it's funny. It turned out those Thursday night dinners turned out to be like the kid can't even show his face anywhere, like obviously he's not going to change it for the world, but this, I mean, he can't walk down Broadway without there'd be 30 cars that would stop and be like, are you Ashton Jeanty? So his life has changed so much, but it's awesome to see that he's still his authentic self, and he 100% deserves everything that has come to him because the way he works every single day, everyone isn't going to see that, but ever since that kid was 17, 18 years old, he's been a workhorse, and it's awesome to see all his fruition come true.
And I feel like being maintain that authentic self, it comes from the example that's set by the coaches. I mean, like every
Right,
player that I've
right,
talked
right.
about for Spencer Danielson is he never changed. When he became defensive coordinator, head coach, he is the exact same person that he was back then. And I feel that culture has to have some kind of impact on some of these younger athletes at Boise State. And
100%.
obviously that culture altogether got you to the playoffs. And it was a team effort. Ashton Jeanty may have been the social media face, but it was a team effort of everybody together that that got you there. Can you talk about stepping onto that field? Again, a dream, a goal that the team had that we talked about at the beginning of the season, and now you are stepping into the Fiesta Bowl for your warm-ups or walk-arounds, whatever it is. Can you talk about what that moment was like for you and for the team?
I mean, it was really like just like obviously just the biggest dream come true. I had to sit there during warm-ups and just like take a deep breath and be like, holy crap, like I've watched every Fiesta Bowl growing up. Like I'm here now. Like this is the coolest thing. And I mean it was just what the team deserved and what it wasn't like we weren't shell shocked or anything because we had expected to be there from day one of fall camp, which is actually today. Like they talk about like being outside of the program. It's crazy. I feel like my summer's not even close to being over, and theirs is over today. So, but I mean that Fiesta Bowl was like really just the coolest thing, running out on the field. Roger tripped, which was super. Have you seen that video?
Yes.
Of
Yep.
that was super unfortunate. But I think after that we were all like laughing, relaxed, like it's like we're just here to play football, and Bronco Nation really showed out. That place was jumping. It was an awesome experience for sure.
Yeah, I was at the game, so I was watching everybody run out. I didn't really realize he had done that until I was watching the replay afterwards, and then the
Right,
announcers were talking about it. I
right.
was like, oh man, that's oh well. But you obviously had a great game. You had 8-yard touchdown run, which was not an easy touchdown. I mean, you had to work for that. Um, can you talk about that moment when you come in, you know you're getting the ball to play, and there was a determination in your eyes that you were getting into that end zone. Can you talk about running through that play and in that moment?
So leading up to the game, that play was like designed for like a 3rd and 1. I think it was like 3rd and 1 or 2. So it wasn't even necessarily supposed to be like in the end zone or whatever. It was just supposed to be like a short yardage play in general. And they had called. I was in like the few plays before or something. It was like a 3rd and short, and I blocked an Ashton and ran. And then they called it, and I was like, okay, like here we go. And it was funny in practice. It actually had like cut back, like almost exactly like how it was. And Coach Potter like was like, it's not gonna hit there. Like don't like like the scout team's giving a bad look. Don't think it's cutting back to there. You just go get the 2 yards or whatnot. But when it happened, I mean, like I crossed the goal line, I almost like blacked out. Like I didn't even like really realize what had happened until I had gone over the sideline and like calmed down a little bit. But that was probably like I mean, obviously just like the highlight of my career and everything. That was such a sweet moment with all like the hard work and everything that I had put into the program, all the years I had put in the program. I would trade that for a win in that game, but it was a bittersweet way to go out for sure.
Well, talking about that final moment, before we move on to talk about 2025, and I know everybody's here to watch 2025 for you,
Sure.
so we will be getting there. But before we get into talking about 2025, you talk about that sweet lasting moment. You're going to be going on and doing bigger and better things from here on out. And again, been part of the program for 6 years, and now it's your first time watching as a fan. But for you, what's going to be that lasting impression that you're going to take away from your time at Boise State from a walk-on all the way through the playoffs? What's that one thing that you're going to take away that's going to stick with you the rest of your life?
I mean, I think the big thing, especially with just being the walk on, the way like I've had an offense coordinator fired, I've had a head coach fired midseason. I think it just is like really shaped me to like who I'm gonna be as a person in general. Like it's funny. I have a girlfriend. She'll be like getting upset, and she's like, "You don't really get upset about things." I was like, like I feel like I went through like so much it's hard to like almost like shake me to my core and stuff. And I think that's like really like bred from Boise State and everything, and just like the mentality and everything, like the way I'm gonna attack life definitely is bred through Boise State University football.
Well, let's move on. Thank you so much for talking about your time at Boise State, and that will certainly become a part of the conversation, other points as we go on. So that was
Right.
not necessarily completely over. But let's talk about the 2025 season now. So a
Let's
lot
do
of
it.
excitement, a lot of expectations. We were talking about before the video started, about like the program in 1 year has gone through like 5 life cycles. I mean, just the where they're sitting at now versus where they were last year. Last year, coming out of 2023, they finished the year strong, but they were also coming off a year where record-wise was one of the worst in the program history. And people going, is Boise State still Boise State, at least in the national
Right, right.
perspective? And now coming into 2025, sure, you lose Ashton Jeanty and some other guys, but overall, people are putting Boise State as the favorite to go to the playoffs. Boise
Heavy
State is
favorites.
back,
Yeah, yeah.
heavy favorites, and so it's a completely different spot. And a lot of that is going to come down. Obviously, team sport, defense win championships, special teams incredibly important, but at the end of the day, offense is where you're going to score your points, where you're going to win your games. And a lot of how Boise State goes from here is going to depend on how Boise State moves on from the greatest player of all time in their school history, in Ashton Jeanty. So let's get into talking about this 2025 season. Let's start right off the bat before we even get into any kind of positions or players. Boise State's got a new offensive coordinator. So Nate Potter moving up, replacing Cutter, the protege, and he's fulfilling his role. You've already mentioned him once already, kind of sitting down and talking with you. So let's talk about offensive coordinator Nate Potter, obviously a Boise State legend himself, former player, and now into that role of offensive coordinator for Boise State. How involved was he in kind of the offense? I know he was working with Cutter, kind of working as his protege. How involved was he in the offense, either in practice or in game execution? How involved was he in how involved was he in the offense last season?
I mean, he was super involved. So last year he was like also the run game coordinator. So every time we're running the ball, it's Coach Potter calling the play. I'm not sure exactly how the dynamics working in the box of like Cutter's like, okay, we can run the ball, like go ahead, like call a play or whatnot. But the run game meetings, the Friday mentality meetings are all ran by Potter last year. And I'm really excited to see him as with the change cut free, like where he's making the final decisions and whatnot. I know Cutter's going to be around helping out a lot and everything too, but he was the offense coordinator at Montana when they were running the heck out of the ball and they were in the national championship contention every single year. So it's going to be really excited to see some of his like twist on things and him like fully set free. But I have a feeling it's going to be a real similar offense. Maybe a little bit more creativity with Matt Miller in there, the little young guy. I feel like he was in the peak era of Boise State, like trick plays and whatnot, and but it'll be a really exciting offense, and Potter's going to do a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's right now I'm going through and I'm watching every single game for Boise State from their 2002 season all the way through their current. I do that every year over the offseason, not the whole game, just the highlights. But yeah,
Right.
that Matt Miller era of Boise State football was an exciting one for sure. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to
yeah.
bring a little bit more razzle dazzle maybe back to the play, which I
Right,
know that wasn't a huge
right,
part.
right. Cutter was awesome, but he was big on like, hey, we do this really well, and we're just gonna keep doing it until like like we don't need to change it. Like this is what we do well, and this is what we're gonna do. Which he was awesome, and I love Cutter to death. But it'll be exciting maybe to get a little twist on things in there every once in a while.
Can you talk a little bit about just the coaching style of Nate Potter? I mean, obviously, again, there's a unique culture as part that's always been part of Boise State, but especially under Spencer Danielson and kind of the locker room culture that he's created in his year and a half there. Well, obviously, he was there before, but as the head coach. Can you talk a little bit about the coaching style of Nate Potter, how it differentiates potentially from Cutter, or just how he is as an individual?
I think it's like bred through Boise State coaches in general, but Potter works unbelievably hard. Like I'm talking in the season, he's there at 4 in the morning. He probably leaves at midnight, like every single day. Like that guy, he definitely sets the standard of how he wants people to work, and he has a super high expectation. Like that tight end room has got to be the most dialed room in the country with Potter at the lead. Like he's got those guys working to a T, and it's really exciting to see him having to kind of like branch out to the other positions and whatnot. And I know that standard's going to be still held super high for everyone, and it's led by example and whatnot. It was good. Me and Potter last year had like a good dynamic where I would just like give him a hard time or just like crack a couple jokes, and he'd be like, "Shut up, T Crow," like like good to give him a smile every once in a while. But that guy. The guy is a workaholic, and he definitely sets the tone in the building for sure.
Well, Seven Tone Bill's going to be important coming into this season again because it's a lot of the same players coming back, but with the absence of Ashton Jeanty, the offense is going to have some different focal points on it, and one of those focal points is going to be Maddux Madsen. So let's talk about that for the passing game. And the big question, I think, in most people's minds is can Maddux Madsen shoulder that load, right? Because last year he was a big part. I mean, a lot of people, because of how big Ashton Jeanty was, they overlooked how good Maddux Madsen was last season. 3,018 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, which, by the way, is tied for the second fewest interceptions of any quarterback in the country who had over 3,000 yards passing. He also, rushing quarterback, too, 221 yards. People forget about that element of his game. 221 yards rushing as well. Great scrambler, 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. And then his 3,018 yards was 28th overall in the country. So this is a guy that's not just a supplemental quarterback, but this was a quarterback who's one of the best in the country, top 30 in the country last year, and even top 2 in some of those numbers. So Maddux Madsen moving though from that role of being a little bit more of a game manager and making sure that the offense worked for Jeanty, he's now going to be moving more into that playmaker role as well. And again, big question I think a lot of fans' minds is how will he shoulder that responsibility? What have you seen out of Madsen in your time at Boise State that gives you confidence, or any questions about that role that he's stepping into this year?
Um, well, start off like it's awesome seeing him get the preseason Mountain West Player of the Year. You know, because I feel like even Boise State people like discredit him a lot for whatever reason. I remember like people were like he would throw one interception, they'd be like, put Malachi in, or what, like there was just all the Twitter people who don't know anything. But it's awesome seeing him get a little bit of credit that he deserves. And I mean, you look at the kid, he chased off Taylor Green, who is a stud and tore it up at Arkansas last year. He's chased off Malachi Nelson, who's a 5-star quarterback, was the #1 ranked quarterback in that class. I mean, that speaks a little bit of volume. It's not because like the coaches have favoritism or whatever. It's just because he presses that subject. I remember like there's people there's two types of people. When someone goes down or you get brought into the game, you either take advantage of your opportunities when you get in there or you don't. And the coaches are like, yeah, see, that's why you weren't playing or whatever. But every time Mad Dog came into the game, it's like, dude, we're just like moving the ball. Like I remember, what was it? Was the UCF game at home? We're struggling on offense. It was 2 years ago. Struggling on offense. Mad Dog goes in there for the drive, and we take the ball right down the field in a tight game. We're down. Like it's not garbage time. It's not anything. We go right down the field, go score. So just the way that kid can take control of a field, like that kid is a field general out there and knows where you're going to be on the correct timing. And the kid can sling it too. I remember coaching the high school camps, like we offered this kid. I was like, who's this short blonde kid like that we offered? But that kid proved me wrong and has proved a lot of other people wrong, and he's going to do a great job. It's going to be really exciting to see now that he is like the starter, that how he like does in that role now, because he like I think I saw something where he said every fall camp he's gone into, it's been like he's like competing for the job. It's like, and he's like competing from behind too. It's not like he's competing at the start of the role. So it's awesome to see him. He'll be able to play even more comfortable, cut it loose even more, and there's no pressure for him. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that UCF game and what he did in that 2023 season. That was one of the games that I was able to fly in for, and it was an awesome experience. Obviously lost, but still a great game. And big part of that was Maddux Madsen stepping up, and that just blew me away that he could come in as I think he was a true freshman at that point, or at least a
Yeah,
freshman.
yeah,
That he
redshirt
could,
freshman. Yeah,
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 redshirt freshman, that he could come in with zero playing experience in an offense that he did not at any point in camp was competing for a starting role and play at that level. And the coaches trusted him to play that level. Really completely molded my outlook and perspective of Maddux Madsen from that point on. And when you talk about his role in the offense, yes, last season for a large part he was more of that kind of game manager, right, making the smart throws, making smart decisions. The coaches talk about how his mental recognition of the game is just elite, almost Kellen Moore level
right,
in that area.
right,
But people also forget that he is also that playmaker, and he came in those crunch moments when all the pressure was on and did everything he could. We did not lose the UCF game or the Memphis game because of Maddux Madsen. He put the team in a
right,
position to
right.
win those games. And even last year, when Boise State needed a boost, when they were coming off of a mistake, even if it was a mistake mistake he'd made or a down moment they needed a boost, he was there. Georgia Southern, right. He throws that interception, comes out the next drive, leads a 90-yard touchdown with two very impressive long throws, 90-yard
Definitely.
touchdown drive, and it kind of re-puts the momentum back in Boise State's corner, and they win that game. Versus Nevada, he leads a 95-yard touchdown after the half. Boise State's tied that game, comes into the half, and he leads a 95-yard touchdown drive that it's just mostly him passing the ball and has that momentum at playmaker. And again, even San Jose State, 92-yard touchdown after being down 14 points early, kind of brings back a little bit of that confidence to Boise State that ended up driving through the rest of the game, coming back from behind to win that one. So a lot of people forget about that with Maddux Madsen, that he's not just a super smart guy. He's also a player that is able in it. I think he plays his best in those crunch moments when the pressure and expectations on him the most. Penn State game was his best game of the season. 304 yards passing. He did have three picks, but two of those were in desperation. I don't even
Right,
count those. I
right.
mean, you were just throwing the ball up at that point. He
The
had
that
one
last
mistake.
drive there, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, he had one mistake, he had one interception, but also that was right after a touchdown been called off the board for a silly penalty on Boise State's side. So, he was put in a position by the team, and he made one mistake. And other than that, I mean, he stepped up when all the pressure was on and stopping Ashton Jeanty and even stopping him, and he had to run the offense. He answered that question, which a lot of fans have had, and I have those same Twitter arguments, and that's kind of been my crusade this last season. But a lot of fans say, well, if they stop the running game, he can't step up, and he has done that time and time again. So I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. But one thing that you brought up that a lot of people forget about is this is a different year for him. Not only is he coming in with all of this experience now that he has from last season as a solidified starter, but he's also, like you said, coming to this fall camp where he's not competing with anybody. He is getting all the reps. And I know that last fall camp he did start off as the starter, but there was a battle between him and
Right.
Nelson. But this year, he is the starter. He has gotten all the primary reps, and that is huge. And you expect a big jump between sophomore and junior year anyway. That's kind of the known jump in college football. So, what do you expect to see out of him as far as elements that you think he'll be improved on coming into this year, just after having that experience and that junior year boost?
I mean, I'm really just excited to see him step up and make even the wide receiver room better. Like the great quarterbacks make freaking their wide receivers better. So I'm really excited because that room is wide open. So I'm really excited to see him get the ball to different guys. The ball is going to be going all over the place. It's not going to be like last year where Ashton's getting the ball most of the time. So ball's going to be spread around the field, and it's going to be awesome to see him at the head of things, controlling all that.
And I think that's a big part of the reason he got that Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year preseason award, because they recognize that this offense is going to be. You talk about you talk about Potter still being a run guy, but I all the players that I've talked through so far, as far as recruits, what they're being told, it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more of a pass focus as well in this offense. I mean, would
Right.
you agree with that? That's probably
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Like I know they're gonna set the tone, and take people deep waters in the run game, but they're definitely gonna throw the ball more this year, 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
and that brings us into our next discussion point. I think that Maddux Madsen is a player that's going to step up to the moment, but the question is who steps up around him, because Boise State is going to lose. I got the number here, so stand by 1 second. Boise State is going to lose 1,403 yards of receiving from their top receivers last year. Camper, Strawn, and Bolt all gone. That's almost half of the offense as far as the passing goes. And so Boise State's going to have some guys step up. Now, luckily, before we talk about the wide receivers, they do have great stability in that tight end room, that room that Potter has carved out. Obviously, that's been where he's coming from, so that will continue to be a focus. But Boise's got the best tight end. I'm going to say I think he's the best tight end in the country this year in Matt Lauder, 619 yards receiving. He was the second leading receiver last year on the team. He's the number one leading receiver coming back this year as far as yardage, 7 touchdowns as well. They also have Matt Wagner in that room, and then some exciting guys that haven't had opportunity to step up. Maybe they do this year: Voorhees, Terry, and then some incoming freshmen. I got to interview Carter Kukenbu. He looks exciting as well. So can you talk a little bit, before we move on to talk about the wide receivers, can you talk a little bit about this tight end room, kind of what you expect to see out of them, if there's any names you think will surprise, and just kind of what role you expect them to play in the offense this year?
I mean, with the way Potter works, I mean, I think they're all going to play in different roles. I think Terry might be a little bit of that fullback type action. Voorhees is a really solid guy, but if Matt Lauder could stay healthy, he's an NFL tight end next year, 100%. Like the kid, like another one of those kids as a freshman, like tore it up in a scrimmage. I remember he took had a really long one handed catch, hit a backflip, and then coach kicked him out of the scrimmage because he did a backflip in the middle of the scrimmage. I was like, this kid's 245, breaking 6'5", hitting backflips, and that kid. I mean, the wide receiver room is real good too, and Trell's gonna be freaking. He's gonna have 1,000 yards, but don't be surprised if Matt Louders ends up being the number one wide like yardage guy next year. I could see Matt having 1,000 yards for sure next year. And Wags really showed up in some good times last year as well, and he's only developing and getting better, and he's gonna be a big part of the offense as well.
I mean, it would be huge. I think 2001 was the last time that a tight end led in receiving yardage, so that would be a pretty impressive stat to jump up on. And I
Right.
agree, he is impressive. He's incredible. You already mentioned the wide receivers, so let's move on to discussing them. Caples, guy, sixth year guy coming in. He knows his offense like the back of his hand. He's been part of this program for a super long time, just like you were, and he's going to step up in that leadership role. And then the other big question though is who kind of steps up around him, right? Because you do lose Strawn, you do lose Camper and Bolt. So Chase Penry's a guy who has shown some flashes. He's given me some Vinny Peretta vibes sometimes out there on the field, transferred from Colorado. Ben Ford, local guy who's had some good moments, but only 34 yards last season, so hasn't been a heavy contributor. Cameron Bates really excites me with his speed. Boise State really was kind of seemed like trying to get him involved any way they could. He had 43 yards rushing and 67 yards receiving and a touchdown on the ground. A little bit of that Titus Young role. And then the big question is Chris Marshall. That's a guy that is highly touted coming in, and for whatever reason, I don't know if you can speak to it. For whatever reason, just hasn't really seen the field that much. Only 3 receptions for 13 yards last year. But who do you see kind of stepping up in that entourage in the wide receiver room with Luttrell to back up the tight ends and to help out in that passing game?
I think that room's about as wide open as it gets outside of Latrell Cables. I think there's a lot of really hungry guys in there that are ready to step up and ready to contribute to the team. And you really need like 5, 6 maybe wide receivers who are gonna be game ready. And a guy I'm really excited for is Ben Ford. I mean, he was like that fifth, sixth guy last year, and he would get one package a game, like one play, 2 plays a game, and he would have a catch. Penn State, I think he had one play in Penn State, and he caught the ball. And it's a kid who's 7-Eleven always open. Like I like the way he sees the field, or I don't know what it is, but that kid is always open. I expect him to really step up this year. I think I've heard a lot of great things about Chris this year, and I think he's really ready to step up. Like the talent is 1,000% there. That kid's about as talented as it comes. And if you were to tell me right now Chris Marshall is going to have 1,600 yards next year, I would be like, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't be like, oh, that's like super shocking to me. But it also comes down to staying healthy and just go like fitting in with the offense and whatnot. So I'm excited for him. He's a little bit of a wild card, but I think he has a super high ceiling that he can fill. Cameron Bates, like you said, that kid's a crazy good athlete. I've heard really good thing about the freshman class coming in too. So don't be surprised if there's a freshman or two that end up stepping into that role as the fifth or fourth guy. So Penry, Chase is a stud. So they got a good group. It's just who's going to step up into and be that guy. Latrell's definitely at the head of that, but I'm excited for the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this wide receiver class. I think the big focal point that came out of that was speed. There's so much speed in this class. So starting off with, Quentin Brown, guy that I've gotten to interview as well on the channel. So, I mean, he is just dynamic, and I could see him maybe
Right.
getting a role somewhere, some package plays, kind of like Cameron Bates did. And then Cameron Jones is super exciting. Another guy that I got to interview on the channel. A lot of Power Four offers, 6'2", built kind of like that, prototypical NFL wide receiver. And so yeah, very exciting season for the wide receiver and the tight end room. Would you expect there to be any kind of growing pains with this unit with so many new faces in and kind of having to establish themselves? Would you expect any kind of growing pains in the front of the season, or do you think that the leadership is there that they can just hit it game one and just be that mid-season level?
I don't necessarily expect growing pains. I mean, with young guys, definitely. I mean, that's always the case, where they're going to mess up or they're going to get on their bright lights and forget their play or whatnot. But the leadership in that role room, and especially like coming from Miller's cut and paste of Potter, where he expects the most out of guys. Like I've seen him chew out guys just for taking a play off or just like, something that like he would have never done as a player, and he holds those people to the same standards. So it's really exciting to see how he's going to develop those guys in that room, and he'll have them ready to go game one for sure.
All right, so final thoughts on the wide receiver room and tight end room before we move on to talking about the running back game for Boise State. If you had to hazard a guess right now, who do you think leads that room in receiving? You've mentioned a couple guys, Caples, Louder, even potential Chris Marshall. But if you had to hazard a guess based on what you've seen on the playing field, who would you say you think is going to lead that room in 2025?
I'd probably say Caples. I think he's wide receiver one. The kid's a stud. He's gone through some like injuries early on in his career, but that kid's awesome, and he works super hard. And I'm really excited to see him step up as that guy this year. So yeah,
Well, that's exciting to hear about all the potential there. There's a lot of kind of uncertainties, unknowns there, but I think when you put that all together, what we've seen and their potential, if they can step up on the field and be truly great. And that kind of brings us to the running back room because it's a little bit of a same conversation there, right? You lose
right,
Ashton Jeanty, he was the focal point. Other running backs got into the game as well, but it wasn't like 2023 where it was Helani and Jeanty, and both of them were doing kind of a 1-2 50
right,
50 kind of role. That was not the case last year. And so you've got a lot of excitement about this room. I think it's the deepest running back room in the country this season,
yeah,
certainly in the group of six. But coming into this year for Boise State, there is that uncertainty of who is going to step up and kind of take over that role. Before we talk about any names right now, before we talk about any of these guys on the roster, the running back room last year, very much a one running back playing kind of position. This year,
right.
again, before we talk about any players, do you expect this to be a little bit more of a running back by committee with just how much talent there is in this room?
I mean, definitely. Like Coach Jamont's got a problem on his hand, but it's a good problem. It's a real good problem. There's a lot of talent. These guys, I mean, 1 through 4 could go play at any other Mountain West school and get buco time. So it's really exciting to see that room like where it's at now. And knock on wood, but the running back position is a position where not all 4 of the guys are going to be healthy all 12 games, like I mean it's just yeah, it's a position where guys get hurt, and it's going to be nice to have a room that's ready to go and depth that's like ready to go next guy up mentality. So yeah.
Well, let's talk about that room again. I think all these guys are going to have a role on the team in some form or fashion, but the guys coming back, replacing again 2,601 yards passing and 29 touchdowns. All that's gone, and now Boise State's got to step back up in that role. But we did see some great flashes last year. Obviously, Sire Gaines, really exciting talent and prospect. Only played in 3 games due to injury, but in that time, 156 yards and a touchdown was huge in that Georgia Southern game right off the bat, as playing as a true freshman. Dylan Riley coming in, exciting speedster, the Jet. I'm wearing his hat right now. Again, not a sponsor, just like to
Okay.
support Boise State athletes. I'll put a link in the description if you want to try and find one yourself. But Dylan Riley, the Jet, he's a special teams guy. He's also in the running back room, 22, from a running back perspective, 22 carries, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also had a special teams touchdown. Jean-Bray Dubar, the junior, kind of the leader in that room as far as experience goes. Again, dealing with some of that injury, coming back, was never fully healthy last year, only played in 7 games, but 25 carries for 99 yards. And then that wild card, which again was just so shocking when we signed him, bringing in your rivals running back, a guy that did some good things, or if you're Boise State fan, bad things to us in 2023. But Malik Sherrod, 6th-year running back coming out of Fresno State, 1,634 yards rushing in his career, 15 touchdowns, only played in 4 games last year because of injury. Again, that is a very, very stacked running back room with a lot of variation of talents there. Just off the bat, what's your perspective when you look at that room, what you've seen from the guys in practice? How do you potentially see this room kind of shaking out this year?
I think a big thing is like none of those 4 guys you named have a similar play style, which is a good thing. Breezy's almost more of that like slasher running back. You got Dylan, who's the speedster. Malik's like the really agile, really quick guy. You can even throw him in the slot if you wanted to. And then Sire's just I mean, he that kid's a freaking beast. It's mind-boggling to me every time I see him. He's 18 years old. So I mean, like Coach D said, that kid didn't take a day off all summer, and it shows. The kid looks like he's about Derrick Henry's freaking size. LeBron definitely lighter, but the kid's a beast. So I'm really excited to see how that all shakes out, and it'll all work out in the end. I think everyone will end up playing. If there has to be a day one start, it'll probably be Sire Gaines. But I mean, there's unlimited depth in that room, and it's going to be a really exciting room. Definitely should break 2,000 yards in the room, not necessarily one person, but between everyone else. Yeah.
Do you think Boise State even, I mean, obviously, that again, they've had those long lineages of 1,000 yard backs, but with a committee kind of style, do you see 1,000 yard back in this room this year? I mean, maybe if they were just by themselves, but with so much talent being split, or like you said, just a combined 2,000 as a whole, 600 here, 700 here kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it all depends on if they get a lot of two backs rolling or how much they rotate or whatnot. But I could see Sire having 1,000 yards for sure. I mean, the kid's a freaking beast. Again, like knock on wood, it's all about health and everything like that in that position. So, I don't really know if there's going to be 1,000 yard back or not, but the talents there were all four of them. If they started all 12 games, could do that. Could have 1,000 yards for sure.
Well, it's not just running back that Boise State has to replace. They also have to replace yourself at fullback this season
Right,
as well.
right.
And like I said, currently on the roster, I looked through, there's nobody listed as fullback right now. Do you see Boise State going with kind of that traditional fullback role like they did last year? Or do you see them mixing it up and kind of, hey, we pull in a tight end at this point, we bring in a halfback, just to fill that role for a play or for, it's kind of a multiple positional kind of play at that role. Do you see a dedicated person or do you see kind of just what are the package works?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's gonna be necessarily a dedicated fullback. Like maybe Austin Terry, they might like switch him like over like officially, but I think for the most part it's gonna be a lot of like two back sets, and then like they'll pull some tight ends and other personnel packages. So yeah.
Well, the last unit that we're going to look at is one that often gets overlooked, and even on myself on this channel, I've been guilty of that as well. But it is the unit that is the best one on the entire team. When you talk about experience coming back, when you talk about proven potential, there's a lot of excitement for the quarterback, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. But the best unit, I think they're going to be the best unit in the entire group of six for sure, is this offensive line for Boise State. This offensive line is absolutely incredible. They lose one guy in Dooley from last year, but they bring everybody else back. They have six guys that had seven or more starts between them. This is an incredibly built unit. Just some of the names off the bat that stand out. Obviously, Cage Casey, Zach Holmes, Mason Randolph, Roger Carrion, Hall Schmidt, Dalen Meteor, the Steele brothers. This is going to be an incredible offensive line for Boise State. What was it like working with these guys and running behind an offensive line? Ashton Jeanty didn't just do what he did by himself. What was it like working with an offensive line, and what kind of dedication did they put into their craft?
Yeah, I mean, huge shout out to Coach Keen because earlier years in Boise State, the O line always had questions and like always not a lot of depth. Last year, that guy built some incredible depth. Zach Holmes played a bunch of games. TK played a bunch of games, and that's without two All American freaking offensive linemen right there. We're still running the ball all over. Hall hadn't played really a whole lot. Lou hadn't got to play, so the depth that's built in that room right now is awesome to see, and it's a huge shout out to Keen and the way he develops people and whatnot. But yeah, I mean those guys, especially with Mason, Roger, Cage, they lead that group for sure. They get after people. They're nasty. Cage is a nice guy, but Cage is a freaking athlete. Like he's probably the most athletic offensive lineman I've ever seen. But Mason and Roger, they're just two nasty guys that are gonna ready to get after you and let you hear about it the whole game. I'm really excited for that whole unit to have a great year this year, and they will for sure.
Is there anything that sets them apart from other units that you've played against, in the Mountain West and that kind of thing? Is there anything that sets them apart? Their work ethic or their intentionality, anything that makes them different, or is it just kind of bringing in the right guys in the right positions?
I think it's like a combination of both, like the leadership is really good in that room, and that always goes a super long ways. And then just like I said, just building the depth, like because offensive line, it's got to be the one probably the hardest position because you got to have five guys ready, and then a whole nother five ready behind them. You got to have 10 whole guys ready to play at any moment. So I think just the way Keen has put the pieces together and the way these guys have come in and developed and worked so hard, and they're a freaking awesome group, and the tight ends are right there too. They block all, like they're hand in the ground blocking their face off too, and Matt's a real physical guy and likes to get after people as well, so that helps.
Something that's been said is that even with how historic this unit was last year, with all this talent coming back, they could be even better this season. Do you see that potential out of this unit? It seems like it's hard to improve from the peak, but do you see this as being an even better unit next season?
Yeah, I mean, Ben Dooley was a really big piece, was a really big leader on that team. But I just think the experience out of the group as whole, like I said, the Zach Holmes, the TK, the Jason Steels, who got a lot of game experience last year, which is like huge because like those three guys, I don't even know who's going to start at left guard, So and they all played in like 8 games or something last year, so that's huge. And then you obviously are at the head with Cage and Mason and Roger, and those guys are ready. The right tackle position will be a real interesting position too, because Lou and Hall were kind of going back and forth between splitting reps towards the end of the year last year, so that'll be a good competition going into fall camp as well. And whoever wins that, they'll be ready for sure.
Right. Well, and even whoever doesn't win that is probably going to have a role in the
Yeah,
like we saw
exactly,
last year as well.
exactly.
So
Yeah, yeah,
very,
yeah.
very deep unit, very exciting unit. That goes for the whole team overall. That's kind of been our trend as we've gone throughout. It's like, hey, we don't just have one guy we're excited about in this other than quarterback, but there's not just one guy we're excited about in this position, but there's multiple guys with potential, multiple guys with experience that are going to step up. And I think that this is going to be an exciting year. I mean, again, last year was so historic for Boise State, but it feels like that they are right on the edge of another one of those seasons. And when you look back at the golden eras of Boise State, the Kellen Moore days of Boise State and that kind of thing, what set them apart was that it wasn't just kind of a one and done type of year. Every year there was no rebuild season. A rebuild season for them might be like 11-1, but like Boise
Um,
State continued to be at that top level, and it feels like we're kind of back in that era of Boise State with the culture and the recruiting and the dedication and everything that Spencer Danielson and all the rest of the coaches brought to this unit. So when you look at this 2025 season, just to kind of wrap up here with the offensive preview, when you look at this 2025 season, what are your expectations? What do you see? Is this another CFP run team? And can we beat Notre Dame? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts when you look at this 2025 season?
I mean, definitely, I love that they went in the team room and changed the goal to make a bowl to win a bowl game. Now it's win the college football playoff or something like that. I love that, and that should be the realistic expectation of Boise State every single year, especially when if they continue to have the one group of five team in there. Like, there's no reason why we shouldn't be at least in the conversation for that every single year in the year out. And I mean, it really comes down to winning the games you're supposed to win. I don't see Boise State really being an underdog in any game this year except the Notre Dame game. So it's showing up in the games you're supposed to, and business should handle itself. I'm going that Notre Dame game too. I'm super excited. Yeah, yeah. The offense is going to be awesome, though. They should average a bunch of points. They should get after people on the offense side of the ball and hope like it's good and bad because the defense does get to break some of those ties because we score so fast. The defense go on a long drive, Ashton to hit like an 80-yard touchdown run, and it's like go back out there. But yeah, it's a good problem to have, like I said, and they're going to be a great unit this year. Could be as a whole better than last year, but it'll be tough to replace Ashton. But yeah,
And I think that's the question is, again, you go from one player to the team, and does the team fulfill all of what the one player did? And I think that sometimes if everybody in that team steps up, it's even better sometimes to not have that one guy that's just the focal point because it forces everybody to improve and to own that responsibility. Not that that didn't happen last year, but it's even more
right.
so when they're every player's like, I've got to be the difference maker on this play because I can't just rely on I've got the greatest player in college football who's going to come out the next
Yeah,
play and make
yeah,
up for this mistake. So
right.
this is going to be an exciting year for Boise State, for college football as a whole, but obviously Boise State and what they're going to do this season. It's been great having you and Tubner and Dalmez on as well, and just again, just that combined perspective because again, three former walk-ons, the OKGs that Boise State came in and took your opportunities and did what you all did with it and created this program where we're at right now. Took a team that coming into 2020 and through was not where they wanted to be, and now you all leave Boise State with a legacy and in a position to go on and be even better than what you all were, and that is just an amazing position to find yourselves. Looking back, final question here for the video. Looking back on what you as a team built, are there any final thoughts here for what you all did as a team or this 2025 season?
Biggest thing, I mean, let's put the ball down, man. I'm ready for that USF game. It's Thursday game. It's going to be hot. I'm ready for the boys to get after. I'm ready to be a fan this year and have a different perspective on things. But should be an awesome season. The expectations are through the roof as always, and go Broncos.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for everything that you did as part of your career helping build this program to where it's at today. Thanks, everybody, for sticking all the way to the end. Make sure, again, you leave those comments below on anything that we've talked about today. I want to go back through and have that discussion with each and every one of you. Your excitements, your own predictions on who starts at what position, and all of that I want to have in the comments below. So, again, thank you so much, Tyler, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around all the way to the end. Make sure to like, subscribe. It's going to be an exciting season. And as always, go Big Blue!